Good morning, and thank you to all the listeners and viewers joining us across all the platforms that this press conference is being carried on. And of course, thank you to the members of the media who have also joined us to assist in getting the information out to the public. Why are we here? Well, as the population is no doubt aware, Trinidad and Tobago is awaiting some impending bad weather. The tropical wave that had formed in the Central Atlantic has been upgraded to a potential tropical cyclone number 2, and Trinidad and Tobago is now currently under a tropical storm watch. Before I pass off to the rest of the team comprising Minister Marvin Gonzalez, Minister Faris Al-Rawi, and Minister Ruhan Sinanan, along with our technical team from the Office of Disaster Management and Trinidad and Tobago Met Office, I would just like to read a press release that should be in the public domain right now. It is released from the Office of the Prime Minister. Trinidad and Tobago Meteorological Service has been monitoring the center of potential tropical cyclone 2 to the east of Trinidad. On the forecast track, the system will pass near or over portions of the southern Windward Islands tonight. As a result, Trinidad and Tobago has been under a tropical storm warning. Given its present track and the likely storm conditions, which project periods of heavy to intense showers and or thunderstorms are likely, out of an abundance of caution, a decision has been taken to close all government offices at 12 noon today, except for essential services. Heads of department will communicate with their respective staff. This is an effort to minimize the number of persons on the nation's roads and to allow first responders, if necessary, to easier access and mobility. Individuals are advised to pay attention to news updates and follow instructions of government officials and take necessary steps to protect lives, livelihood, and property under the signature of the acting Prime Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, the ministerial team that has been assembled by the acting Prime Minister, comprising the acting Minister of National Security, the Minister of Rural Development and Local Government, and the Minister of Works and Transport, are here to report to the national community to bring you up to date. And I would like to move right now to Minister Al-Rawi in his position as Minister of Local Government.
Good morning to Trinidad and Tobago and to everyone who's listening in here. So we are on prepare. Let's give you a report as to where we stand right now. All of the 14 corporations yesterday resolved themselves into emergency measures and suspended regular works. All disaster management units at those corporations have been fully stocked and are ready. All supplies were given: cots, mattresses, tarpaulins. We have put in chainsaws. We have managed to position all of our physical assets, that is equipment, backhoes, tractors, transport, etc., at various locations in conjunction with the Ministry of Works and Transport. We've also had contractors who are on site, as the Ministry of Works has coordinated. We've had them put their assets on standby so that in the event of landslide or other issues, we're able to attend with physical assets. 712 municipal police have been assembled. All people have been recalled back into duty. In getting this confirmation, we have ensured that we're paying attention to the weather system. We have here today the representatives from the ODPM and also the Meteorological Services position, who will give you better details. But suffice it to say, this system, that's L94, which the Americans are yet looking at calling Bonnie, that system is what we're paying attention to. Remember, we're preparing for outer bands, moving into more intense weather, which will be explained in just a short while. The current time frame is approximately 6 p.m. that we're looking at heavy rains to come to us. That'll be explained again in a short while. In the meanwhile, we have sent drones out to all the usual suspects, all areas that are prone to flooding, etc. The HTC communities have been put upon high alert, those areas that are prone to flooding. We have also reached out to every single CEO at every single corporation to ensure that they are fully equipped, sandbags, diesel, structures, notwithstanding statements from some of the corporation chairs, in fact just one, that monies are an issue. That is not an issue. There are regular systems of just using money from another area across the point. But I have personally ensured that every CEO has been contacted. We are urging people to prepare in terms of self-management. There are many places where river embankments are not aware of risk, but there are some places where there are no embankments and people have built right up to the edge. So farmers and livestock handlers are urged to please bring in your stock, ensure that they are placed appropriately. Very importantly, there are two types of damages that we see in this event. Of course, you see household damage. And if you look from an insurance claim perspective, many people have significant claims in relation to their cars being submerged. If you do live in a low-lying area that is prone to flooding, please take note that we have confirmed that the following sites are available for you to park your at-risk cars and vehicles: Brian Lara Stadium, Udicot Parkade in Port of Spain, all community centres as confirmed by the Ministry of Community Development, the Naparima Bowl, and Sapa and Napa. We're working on alternative sites. These sites will be supervised by the municipal police to ensure that you have degrees of protection. So if you are at risk, you know that you have some street flooding or the areas where you are, you're not quite certain where to take your assets, meaning your vehicles, please let me repeat this, which we'll put out on our webpage and we'll push out by WhatsApp and other notification. Brian Lara Stadium, Udicot Parkade, all community centres as confirmed by the ministry, Naparima Bowl, Sapa and Napa. We have activated all of the relief shelters. A full master list has been pushed out and posted together with contact names. That is, in the event that the ODPM triggers those assets, we have cleaned, we have prepared, supplies have been delivered to the corporations, and therefore they will be stocked. In all of these circumstances, we urge you to please ensure that you make best preparations possible. We have received numerous reports of trees, etc., which we have attended to, but there is nothing to replace self-preparation. The Ministry of Works and Transport will identify its works and structures. So with your permission, Minister of Community Development, shall we pass over to First Minister Gonzalez, who will give us the public utilities and national security response aspects, and then come to Works and Transport.
From Communications, yes.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Minister Al-Rawi. Good morning, colleagues from my cabinet, as well as members of the ODPM and the Meteorological Services Division of Trinidad and Tobago. Let me first assure you that the relevant utilities and government agencies are mobilized and activated to provide appropriate responses to eventualities that may likely occur. Emergency plans for all utilities have been fully activated. The focus would be on minimizing risk to public health and safety, communications, and reporting to the national community, and early restoration of services in the event of disruption. As it relates to the water sector, the Operations Division of the Water and Sewerage Authority has developed an emergency response plan for the 2022 wet season. That plan, some aspects of which have already been operationalized. will ensure the continuity of service by managing facility downtime within the shortest time frame possible. Some of the key measures employed by WASA are as follows: identification of facilities likely to be affected by flooding, power outage, accessibility and/or high turbidity, and the execution of preventative maintenance checks as required. Appropriate staffing at all facilities to ensure continuity of service with alternates on standby if required. Emergency response protocols and guidelines will be provided to the plant operators with an established chain of command. Personnel will also be advised and equipped for prolonged stays at the facility in the event it becomes inaccessible. Ensuring all service reservoirs, large and storage tanks throughout the country are at full capacity. Communication with critical institutions like schools and hospitals to ensure that they have on-site water storage. They will all be given priority status for water trucking service if and when required. With regards to the electricity, the Trinidad and Tobago Electricity Commission, TNTEC, activated its Central Command Center yesterday at 6 p.m. All key technical personnel and staff are now on full alert and ready to respond to any crisis in Trinidad and Tobago. All key personnel and staff are on full alert. All leave has been cancelled for all field staff. 2 crews have been deployed to Tobago. All substation personnel have been deployed to ensure standby pumps are activated at substations. Sandbags are arranged for installation to avoid possible flooding at various substations. All mobile substations are on standby mode. All radio satellite phones are all tested and deployed. With respect to TSTT, they have tested alternate communication systems, sensitized and engaged resources for restoration activities, determined cellular mast heights to be reduced preemptively, and secured critical assets. And of course, the Trinidad and Tobago Met Services, one of the key agencies we rely on in times like this, continues to use all the resources available to keep the national community updated, informed, and prepared for adverse weather conditions. And I want to publicly commend them for the service they continue to provide on behalf of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. We urge all our citizens to monitor and follow approved updates from government agencies, for example, the Office of Disaster Preparedness Management, the Meteorological Services Division of the Ministry of Public Utilities, and Ministry of Local Government. Citizens are cautioned about unauthorized online platforms purporting to give information, and be vigilant against social media platforms purporting to give reliable information to the citizenry during this very critical time. I wish to commend members of the protective services, the staff of the ODPM and the Ministry of Public Utilities for the work that they have demonstrated and the professionalism they have demonstrated to the people of Trinidad and Tobago during this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Gonzalez. Minister Sinanan.
Thank you, ministerial colleagues at the table. The Ministry of Works, we are fully mobilized. All the divisions are out on the ground, and we are prepared for whatever disaster, if anything, was to come our way. I can give you the assurance that the water taxis will be operating up to about 3 o'clock today. So whoever has to use the water taxi to go from Port of Spain to San Fernando, you have up to 3 o'clock today, because we do have to protect the infrastructure, the vessels. The ferry out of Tobago, those 2 ferries will be grounded, I think, after 3 o'clock today. So there will be 1 more sailing coming down, but by 3 o'clock, both ferries will be grounded. We are looking at the priority bus route. Should in case there is a need for the opening of the priority bus route, we will consider that. At this point in time, it is not open to the public, because as we are well aware, the priority bus route is to move mass transportation. And with the announcement of the closure by 12 o'clock, we do not anticipate any challenges before the inclement weather actually starts to affect us. In terms of pumps and so everything, as I announced 2 days ago, fully mobilized. The team are out there in terms of the equipment and so have been staged at certain locations. So the ministries can say that we are in a position to respond to any disaster that may occur. However, information is critical to us, and what we urge the population to do is to liaise exactly with the local government, who are the first responders, and the Ministry of Works is there to support all the teams that are placed on the ground, and we are confident that we can handle any disaster that may come our way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Sinan. Before I pass over to our technical team, I'd just like to kick back to Minister Al-Rawi.
Thank you very much. So, Trinidad and Tobago, it's important to remember that we have a system which requires communication. The first line of response is to the corporations. So your municipal corporations constitute your first line responses. All of the numbers have been put out. All of the personnel have been put into place. So it's important to remember, let's just be organized. Secondly, the ODPM has a role and function which comes a little bit after local government. But we are the people on the ground for you, your councillors, your disaster management units, your public health inspectors, your engineering division. All of that is where you go to first. It's very important that even though we have the position set up for communications to come in, we will have eyes on the ground. The TTDF, the TTPS are on full alert, and the municipal police, all 712 of them, will be out double checking. What I'm coming to now is, please do not forward fake news. If you make the mistake of spreading fake news, you're going to distract resource attention. What happens, unfortunately, guys, if we're realistic, the truth is that people send images from 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and that's just not going to help us. So please don't clog legitimate communications networks with fake images. Let's just make sure we do this right. Remember, of course, you've heard the many advertisements. Look out for live electrification issues. Remember that your water supply is critical. As Minister Gonzalez told us the last time on Sunday, when the water is turbid or brown coming off of surface water, WASA is going to have to close their stations, so conserve your water. It is very, very important. Livestock and animals. The last time we had an event, we had an unfortunate number of livestock prejudiced. We still have a number of hours in the event that this goes in a very bad way. Let's hope it doesn't. Let's just make sure that we prepare on this end. So I'll say line of communication is squarely the regional cooperations. All assets have been deployed. Please make sure that we keep legitimate messaging in the mix. Okay? So, Minister, may I suggest that we bring in Met Office first to explain to us exactly what this weather system is going to look like.
If I could just... I just got a further information that the water taxis will be operating up to 2 o'clock. So anyone who wants to go to San Fernando, normally through the route of the water taxis, you have up to 2 o'clock to get to the port of Port of Spain. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sinanan. Over to Met Office now.
Good morning, a pleasant good morning to all. As you know, the Trinidad and Tobago Meteorological Services has been tracking a very strong and active tropical wave that is on a path towards our direction. And it has now been located at 9.8 degrees north latitude and 57.5 degrees west longitude, or that is just 420 kilometers or 260 miles east of Trinidad and Tobago. The Met Office, since yesterday afternoon, have decided to put out a tropical storm warning orange level. Now, the tropical wave is not really, as yet, a cyclone, and as we speak, the reconnaissance aircraft is in there, looking to see if they can find a close circulation, and if they do, it would be called a cyclone and given a name if it is at storm strength. But nonetheless, we are putting out these tropical storm warnings, orange level, every 3 hours. So I urge the citizens not just to look at the graphics, but to read the literature in it, because we will be tweaking it every 3 hours, and you will be getting important information about this storm, the tropical wave or the storm, as the case may be. So that the system now is just on our doorstep. We have some forward cloud structures, that is thunderstorms, that are occurring right now, and they may come in and occur and blow up and come back down within a few areas during this afternoon. But we have moved up the time for the early onset of tropical storm conditions. Whether the system develops into a cyclone or not, it would produce in our area, and the area marked under the tropical storm warning, it would produce some tropical storm conditions. So that we have moved up the time to 6 p.m. Previously it was 8 p.m. and now the timing of the tropical storm warning is 6 p.m. So that we can expect with the onset of the system, a gradual increase from 6 p.m. and during the evening into the night, we would see the increase in tropical storm conditions, as I said. And some of these effects could be that we may produce, in the first instance, winds in excess of 55 kilometers per hour. But when it becomes on us, so to speak, the wind gusts could be in excess of 70 kilometers per hour. And these gusts could have the effect of breaking tree branches, bringing down weak trees. Heavy rainfall can produce ponding in certain areas, but most of all, it would produce some flooding and flash flooding. And if it continues over the hours, the cumulative effect and the runoff could produce riverine flooding. So we have to look at that in the future. So that with this system, it is a serious system. Even if we are not yet calling it a cyclone, we should take it seriously. And I urge all citizens to take it seriously. Look at the messages coming out from all the agencies, and especially the Trinidad and Tobago Met Service. If you want the correct weather information, we will be providing at 3 hours. And I wish to reiterate again, do not just look at the graphics. Please read the literature and try to understand as it changes as we go forward, because this system is expected to change. And quite possibly it could get stronger, and we are hoping it gets stronger when it passes us into the Caribbean Sea, the southeastern Caribbean Sea. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Benjamin, for your 40 years of experience. We now go over to CEO of ODPM, retired Major General Rodney Smart.
Thank you very much, Minister Dina Brigger. Honorable Ministers, my colleague Mr. Benjamin, the viewing and listening public, good morning all. As Minister Al-Rawi would have indicated, the ODPM will become involved and bring national resources in the event at the local level there become challenges. And when I say at the local level, I mean at the local level in Trinidad as well as in Tobago. The disaster management units in Trinidad within the 14 corporations are our first port of call, our first line of defense. In Tobago, the Tobago Emergency Management Agency. In the event our situation becomes grave and we need to move it to a level 2, the ODPM will coordinate with the local agencies. And through that process, we will bring in the Defense Force and other resources to treat with the situation. We think that given what the Met has told us, given what we've seen, we should be able to manage it within national resources. But in the event this doesn't happen, the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency is standing by to support Trinidad and Tobago as well as all the other islands in the Southern Caribbean. I just want to reiterate, Trinidad and Tobago has a key role to play in the Southern Caribbean. We are the coordinators for the Southern sub-region, and therefore it means we also have to keep our eyes on what is happening in Grenada, in Suriname, and Guyana. So all our national agencies, as you heard before, are ready to go. In fact, right now, the final briefing is taking place at the ODPM National Emergency Operations Center. So Trinidad and Tobago, we are ready. I now ask you to get ready. Please get ready, and let us not have a single person dying from this experience or injuries to anyone. We must band together. We can do this. We have faced more serious incidents. We can get this one through. Thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smart. Before we head off to our question and answer section, I just wanted to ensure the national population that while we are here speaking, I do know that the Secretary General, the Chief Secretary has already spoken to the population, and specifically to those of our brothers and sisters living in Tobago, along with Timor, to give them a sense of their readiness. The acting Prime Minister is in constant contact with him. The Chief Secretary has identified that as a reality as well, and those updates will come from the people on the ground there. We are now going to move into our question and answer section. As always, the rules of engagement will persist. Persons are asked to raise their hand to identify what agency they are from and to give their name, and then ask their questions. We will entertain 2 questions first of all, and then if time permits, we will entertain questions from each media house afterwards. We begin with Suan Wayo, I believe from AZP News. Suan?
Hi, good morning. Thank you all very much for the opportunity. Hope you all are keeping safe. First question. You all mentioned that government offices will be closed from about 12 noon, right? Would you all advise essential services, businesses that are presently open now, such as supermarkets, gas stations, and so on, to lock off at a particular time, as well as citizens to at least be home by a particular time given the situation? And what about like hotline numbers, persons on that ground floor? Are all hotline numbers working, etc.? Thank you.
Thank you, Suan, for your very important question. So the government is the employer of the public service, and therefore we had to await certainty from the Met Office as to where we stood. So we've been tracking the timing for this event. As a result of that, the acting Prime Minister gave the instruction, and Minister de Nobrega read it out, that all government offices will be closed by 12. In all of the circumstances, the private sector is absolutely important in managing itself. There are mechanisms, obviously. Persons can consider whether they need to deal with this or not. Remember, essential services are still going to be in operation. The private sector has already indicated, you would have seen notices from Republic Bank and certain other of the banking sector players and other places indicating that they would have closures going on. So it is free and open to the private sector to arrange their business prudently. Importantly, time marker is currently about 6 o'clock, where we expect the rains to get pretty thick. Therefore, we have ample time. So a phased operation of movement back to base is important. Please exercise personal responsibility. Of course, the issue of what happens depends upon severity. Siri kicked in. Severity depends upon what we're going to do with schools tomorrow, because I've received a number of messages about schools. The Minister of Education will advise as soon as we know what's happening. Remember, we have CXC and CAPE exams that are actually going on. Some of them don't have resit opportunities, so the Minister of Education is paying close attention to this and is in coordination with this team led by the acting Prime Minister. So in summary, Suan, number 1, open to private sector to arrange its business to suit. Number 2, essential services are still in operation. Number 3, The vessel timing, as Minister Sinanan indicated, for water taxis, etc., is still functioning, PTSC, etc. Number 4, we'll get back to you on schools. It depends upon how significant the event is later. Remember, time marker, 6 o'clock this evening. We expect all things being equal. Remember, this is weather. It depends upon wind speed and pressure and different things. There can be changes to timing. So let's just be alert on that ground.
Thank you very much. We now move to Alina Dudnath.
Hi, good day. Alina Dudnath from Loop News. 2 questions. We are told that the storm will be having an effect from Tuesday night tonight into tomorrow. Is there a timeline in terms of when we can, from a communications perspective, get reports on affected areas, the number of areas, the areas, how many households affected, etc. And second question would be for Mr. Benjamin. We're noticing the path of this storm is kind of a bit further south than it normally is. We know climate change is affecting storm patterns and intensities. Can we see patterns of storms veering further south and affecting Trinidad and Tobago in the future? Thank you.
I'll take first question. SIT reps, as we call them, situational reports, are issued every 3 to 4 hours. In the case of Met Office, they have a cycle. And Met Office takes lead in terms of ensuring that we are aware there's one source, that is the Met Office, as to what happens with the weather system itself. We then all take leads from that. At the disaster management unit end, the ministry coordinates that, and we give situational reports every 4 hours, and we push that out. You'll see that we've used a new metric to indicate where and why and what happened, and how we have addressed the situation. So Met Office, it's every 3 hours. In the local government cycle, we're first responders, rural development, local government, we're on the ground. You'll get reports from us every 4 hours, and ODPM will give reports as is necessary when triggered. Of course, the government's communications network, led by the Minister of Communications, is on constant push. So we will do our best to have that in gear. Mr. Benjamin, I'm sure, can speak to the last southerly event we had was Brett, perhaps, and then take us forward on the estimations for climate.
Okay, Trinidad and Tobago, to make the first statement, is not out of the hurricane or storm belt. If we look over the years and we graph and chart courses of storms, we would see quite a number of them, even before the time we were naming storms, have passed through Trinidad and Tobago. So the citizens must be aware that we are not out of the hurricane or storm belt. Now, we cannot take 1 or 2 events in a year and decide that it is climate change. Climate takes place over a number of years. One of the smaller climatological means is 10 years, the other one is 30 years. So in order to decide if something is happening within the climate, we have to look over a 30-year period. Now, as meteorologists with experience, we can make some sort of estimate that, yes, we are seeing tropical storms coming lower within our latitudes over the last couple of years. Yes, we can always expect them to be around Trinidad and Tobago's latitude because we are within the storm and hurricane belt. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much. We now move on to Sarah Chandu. Sarah?
Am I being heard now?
Yes, you are.
Hello, good morning.
Sarah, we're
Good
hearing
morning,
you.
Sarah, we're hearing you. Okay, Sarah, we'll come back to you. Let's move on to Jewel Brown.
Good morning, ministers and the other state representatives. First question, we're getting some information on at least 2 corporations that they have been running out of sandbags. So I don't know if the local government minister could address that and what is being done if in fact there's any shortage of sandbags? The second question, if there are any issues with electricity supply during the passage of the storm system, and let's say you have issues with telephone lines down or internet down, how would then the government be able to best communicate anything that is relevant for the population to know during that period? Would it be by radio? That's my second question.
On the issue of sandbags and associated sand, we have been paying attention very carefully. We've had thousands of sandbags distributed in the last day, which is a good sign. It means that people are taking advantage of the facilities. We are ensuring that the corporations are constantly checked. In fact, I have in my hand my telephone where we have the full WhatsApp communications going on directly with every single corporation, and then we take the caution to call them to double check their status. So we're on top of that. The supply is in hand, and the sand has been procured as well, both from the government and private sector agencies. As to communication, well, we had a very good example of that the other day when we had an island-wide blackout. Obviously, we have radio that is still in effect. So remember, guys, charge your radios, have your battery supplies ready, etc. Don't wait for communications to go down to zero. In the event that internet fails, there is always the GPRS system, which is the low bandwidth system that sends out. It's what we used to call EDGE in the old days, for those of you that understand technology. And that GPRS system has text messaging. TSTT has a platform for SMS sharing, which the Minister of Communications is manning. So we have layers of communication ability. And of course, right down to ground level, because the National Security Network operates with satellite phones and backup supplies that don't rely upon local network provision. So there are layers of communications available. That's why we're positioning our troops, our resources in the various areas to make sure that we can communicate, if necessary, physically.
Thank you, Minister Al-Rawi. Just to add to that, we also have a plan in place. We are seeing all members of media as stakeholders in this communications effort. So we will also be working with Digicel, who will also be on board with SMS messaging as well. So just to add to that. Yeah. Sarah, can we go back to you now?
Good morning, all. This is Sarah Chandra from 103 FM News. I was a bit in and out just now, so I hope my questions are still relevant right now. First of all, Minister Al-Rawi, could you say whether or not persons can head to emergency shelters before we begin to experience that really bad weather? Because, you know, there may be elderly persons who live alone, persons who are in homes that they know would not be able to stand up to the storm. Will those shelters be available to them before? And also regarding the Park and Protect initiative, I've already received questions from a few members of the public. They want to know whether or not there may be any shuttle system to facilitate their transport from the venue after dropping off their vehicles. Thank you.
Thanks for two excellent questions. So some of our shelters involve schools. And of course, last night we took the decision for schools to close. Therefore, we activated the schools. The ones that are not schools are already open, and we will continue to roll the opening all up. Remember, it's preparation, and then you roll into activity. So I'm absolutely confident that all shelters will be opened by now. We had a number of them that were opened yesterday, last night, and then some of them being schools that we did the final sweep on today. So yes, the shelters will be open. There is a master list of every shelter in circulation, together with contact numbers for those persons. In relation to the park system, we thought it prudent, because second highest number of claims are cars during events like this, to give people an option to know that they had somewhere to park, and therefore those venues that I've identified are there. We have not gone to arrange shuttling systems because we're asking people to self-help at this point. The public transportation systems will continue, taxi systems are afoot, but if we were to step in at this point, it may become a little chaotic for people who are awaiting the positions. What we're trying to do is to ensure that the public transportation side continues to function as best as it can. So to people who are interested in the parking venues, it's an option as a safer place than normal. We will have the municipal police have supervision over these sites to make sure that security is appropriate. At least it's a better option than having these areas. Now, many of the flood-prone areas in central and south Trinidad, sometimes you see it in North Trinidad, you know who you are. We want to make sure that prevention is better than cure. So seeing these images of cars submerged in a low-lying area where you live next to a river that is at full capacity because the rains are coming down and the high tide is up, common sense prevails. Don't leave your vehicles there. Don't leave your electrical equipment and stuff on your ground floor. If you can move it higher or to get it a zone, you have many hours ahead of you now to engage in self-help. If you're an elderly person or somebody that is operating with disability, please let us know through the corporations how we may assist. And also, now is a good time to be each other's keepers, brothers and sisters keepers, and good neighbors. So let's all pitch into this effort.
Thank you very much. Before we move on, a question was sent in asking if anything has been done to ensure continuous access to Cumberland Hill should an adverse event take place up there. I just want to let him know that I received a report from the CEO of TTT today who told me that they would have done an inspection of the road, that loose debris was removed yesterday. Of course, we do know that there are some areas that are prone to landslips. We will continually monitor that. I don't know if the Minister of Works and Transport would want to add anything to that, though.
Sure. Well, I mean, we all know the challenge on that road. And with this inclement weather, if we get any landslips and so, then the ministry will again be mobilized in a short space of time to ensure that the road remains accessible to members of the media that has to get up to the site. Again, the ministry would have been very proactive in ensuring that we have equipment at all areas that are basically prone to landslip. So should in case something happens on the route to the site there, the ministry will be able to render that accessibility to the roadway.
Thank you very much, Minister Sinanan. Let's move to Charlene Rampasad next. Charlene?
Hi, good morning. Hello?
Morning, Charlene.
Good
We're
morning,
hearing you.
Charlene.
Hi, good morning. Minister Sinanan, we are trying to find out whether the Calco pump at the Tulsa trace site in Penal is operational and whether there has been any reinforcement of the leaking sluice gates at South Urupuch. We know that's an area that is prone to flooding.
There are some pumps stationed at Tulsa Trace, some mobile pumps, and these pumps are being monitored. As you're aware, the pumps only kick in when the gates have to be shut and so. But yes, there are pumps that are stationed there, mobile pumps that are being manned by the members of the Ministry of Works Drainage Division.
Okay, thank you, Minister Sinanan. Can we move on to Jensen Navend, please?
Actually, I have an additional question.
Oh, sorry, Jensen before you, Charlene, your second.
Right. So we've been getting reports that people have been trying to get onto the disaster management unit at the Diego Martin Regional Corporation, and they've not been getting through. People are, desperate to get sandbags and such. Can Minister Al-Rawi, can you address that?
So thank you so much for alerting to that situation. I'm going to make immediate inquiries about it. I'm literally with the chat in my hand as we're speaking to Chairman Sigler Jack. So I will get back to that to ensure that it is solved if it is in fact an issue. So thanks a lot for alerting us to that position. I'm sure that there will be hiccups here and there, but the intention is to make sure that we get it done. So thanks.
Minister, can I just add to that the disaster management unit in the Diego Martin Regional Corporation is in Diego Martin Central, and I would have seen this morning numerous constituents accessing sandbags. So it has been a steady run of constituents, residents in the area who have been accessing. So there may be an issue with resources in terms of answering the phones, but they are there. It is on Moncoko Road, number 2 Orchid Avenue, just before you get to the Old Pity Valley Health Center. Please, you can go there to collect your sandbags.
You see the advantage of having a Minister of Communications who used to be the chairman of Diego Martin. Thank you very much, Minister, for wearing two hats this morning.
Sure, let's move on to CEO.
One final question.
If you just allow me to add as well, the system that we use from the national perspective is that if the corporations or TEMA run out of resources, the ODPM holds what we call the National Strategic Reserves. So we always have reserves to support the corporations. So right now, wherever there's a shortage, once it cannot be filled from within the regional corporation system, the ODPM will step in and back up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to Jensen now.
Hi, good morning. Jensen Van Newsday. Just 2.5 quick questions. A two-part question to Mr. Benjamin. Will we receive the full brunt of this development? And secondly, what's the likelihood of it developing into an actual storm? And my second question, if I could ask it one time, is from Mr. Gonzalez. It was hinted at earlier on, but why wasn't there any consideration given to having a curfew in place today and possibly tomorrow?
Okay, the likelihood of this tropical wave developing into an actual storm is very high at this time. It is a strong tropical wave. I think the last percentage I heard before coming on to this press conference was 70% over the next 48 hours and 90% over the next 5 days. Now 70% is pretty high. So as we speak, they are investigating it further, and it could very well be that when we come off this conference, we may get more information on whether it has developed or not. But whether it develops or not, I say again that we are to expect storm force conditions. We are in a tropical storm warning, a potential tropical storm. So whether it develops or not, we could expect sometime tonight to experience storm force conditions.
I'll take the second question, which is in relation to curfew. Jensen, by now, Trinidad and Tobago is well accustomed to what a state of emergency looks like. It's triggered under the Constitution by way of a proclamation of Her Excellency. And under a state of emergency, once the regulations are published by Legal Gazette, it is at that point that you can institute a curfew, because a curfew is an interruption of civil rights which are suspended under constitutional states of emergency. So to even suggest that there is an option for a curfew, we would, number one, have to get to state of emergency. And we are clearly not in that situation. Further, the point is that in activities such as this, the last thing you want is a curfew when people have to self-help. So you have to make sure that you allow the liberty and movement. So respectfully, I think that the suggestion of a state of emergency curfew condition, because you can only have a curfew under a state of emergency, would take us in a role of extreme difficulty. And for those reasons, of course, it's not even a contemplation. I'll pass to the Minister, Acting Minister of National Security, as it relates to readiness in respect of things that look like security arrangements.
Thank you very much, Minister. And just to reinforce the point that part of the work that we are doing here and the information that we are disseminating to the national community is our way of responding to this impending disaster that may befall upon our beautiful Twin Island as a result of adverse weather condition. It is part of disaster preparedness, and therefore we don't need the implementation of curfew in order to prepare ourselves and to prepare our country to respond to the disaster. The Office of Disaster Preparedness and Management, they have indicated all the things that they have done so far, mobilizing the various agencies. The Ministry of Rural Development, as the Major General Smart has indicated, has been the first port of call. They are doing fantastic work in mobilizing resources at the local level, and therefore if there is a need, if for whatever reason that system is overwhelmed, there's a second layer in order to bring further relief to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So there is a plan. The plan is rolling out, and the people of Trinidad and Tobago must feel very comforted that the agencies of the state have all been mobilized to respond to this impending emergency, and therefore there's absolutely no need for the implementation of a state of emergency or curfew in order to address this situation.
Just to add one more thing, it's important that we remember that measured response is what is required. Lines of communication that are clear, people that you know you can access, communication of real issues, not fake issues. The acting Prime Minister just messaged to say, please reinforce that panic is not where we are. We're about preparation. As many people know, man will plan, but God decides. So there's a certain amount of positions there. In the event that there's a severity, of course the Constitution permits us to activate things such as disaster management. We have a Disaster Measures Act in Trinidad and Tobago. We have a Public Health Act in Trinidad and Tobago. And we have the Constitution, which permits emergencies in states of emergencies and curfews, etc. So there are 3 levels of positions. We're well accustomed to what the public health regulations look like because we have seen that. And in fact, the Privy Council has upheld the propriety of these things in the Dominic Suraj case. So we have multiple options. We are well accustomed to how to manage everything from states of emergencies right down to public health equations, as the 2 years of COVID experience have so clearly demonstrated for us. So let's just be measured, ensure that we're clear in communications, we got real news going, and any good suggestion is more than welcomed from all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Suan, let's go back to you now.
Hi, thank you very much. Suan Weil from AZP News. At this point in time, can you all say, or can you give a cost to the emergency preparation that has already been in place and or is going to be put in place, and where is this money coming from? And to Mr. Sinanan, is there a lock of time for the PTSD transportation buses to stop working today? Thank you.
Costing, if I could jump to that first. The aggregation of cost is across several ministries and state agencies, and therefore it's premature to calculate what those things are. Right now, what we have done is we've told all the first responders, that is the Ministry of Local Government, the Rural Development and Local Government, take monies from the pots of monies that you have. It's called virement. If you have money in a vote for transportation or uniforms and you need it for diesel, I'm talking to Dr. Sami here. If you need it for diesel, Dr. Sami, your many years can tell you that you can transfer it. It's called a virement. There's no need to create panic or worry in people's minds by saying that you don't have money for diesel when you have money somewhere else. Surely you're not going to buy uniforms between today and tomorrow to the very respectable Dr. Sami. So let's be measured. Overall costing, we will factor that equation after the event. The point is that the provisions for expenditure are in effect. At the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government, our team of responders include disaster management, but it includes our administrative division, our AO5, our engineering division, our permanent secretary. They procure supplies that are needed for their approval. The corporations can equally procure. Of course, there'll be procurement at TNTEC, at WASA, at TTDF, at Municipal Police, at Ministry of Works and Transport. All of those things are a cycle. Right now, the key is to make sure that the machine works and that we get the processes going in gear. And we ask people respectfully, leave your politics aside for the next couple of days. Just be honest in the communications that we have, that, we got you covered. That's the bottom line. Of course, there are eventualities and there's a spectrum. It could be severe, it could be benign. The point is we need to prepare. I'll pass to Minister Sinanan about the PTSD schedule now.
Thank you. I have asked PTSD to go on as late as possible, bearing in mind that if the surge was to hit us maybe between 6 and 8, we do have to give the staff time to get home, and so we have to protect the assets at PTSC. But I've asked the PTSC staff to go on as long as possible. And based on that question, we had a question earlier about the private sector. I would ask the private sector to be, responsible enough to understand that staff has to get home, and for those who have to use the public transportation, it will be cut off at a certain time. As I said before, the water taxis will go up to 2 o'clock. We have the last ferry coming in from Tobago at 3 o'clock, and I have asked PTSC at least to go up to, as late as possible, bearing in mind that, drivers will have to get home. But we will keep a core team on hand in the event that PTSC has to respond to any major disasters or to move people to and from any critical area. So the long and short is that we will go as long as humanly possible, but we have to ensure safety of the staff and the assets of PTSC. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Sinanan. Minister Al-Rawi, can I just inform you that I've just gotten information that Gulf City has also been added to the Park and Protect initiative.
Thank you very much. I thought San Fernando would be very pleased about that. So thank you.
That will happen. We're going to move to Jewel Brown, and then we will end with Jensen after Jewel. So, Jewel, you're up.
Okay, thank you very much to Minister Sinanan. Just seeking an update in terms of the issue of the pumps meant to deal with any flooding. I know you spoke about that on Sunday, but just wondering if you had any sort of new information in terms of their readiness. The second question would be to the Public Utilities Minister. You did mention the issue of how WASA would deal with water supply during very severe weather. But how soon, let's say, for example, if supply has to be cut in particular areas because of the severe weather, how soon could the persons affected expect that water supply to be resumed? And are there any contingencies while that water supply is not in service?
Okay, so let me go first. I have been assured that, again, all pump sites have working pumps and they are being monitored. As we speak, there's a meeting going on at the Ministry of Works, which I have to attend after this one, where you have all the divisional heads and all the second and third in command, which includes the drainage division, and all indications are all the divisions are ready. The highway division is ready, the drainage division is ready, even the bridge and landslips division, they're all activated. So, as I said before, I think the Ministry of Works, we are in a position where we can respond to any disaster that may occur. We also have the mechanical section who will be out there working on all the pump sites to ensure that all the pumps are working. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we end with
to respond to Joel?
Oh, one. Okay, sorry.
So, thank you very much, Joel, for that question, because it provides me with an opportunity to remind citizens in Trinidad and Tobago served by surface water sources, especially in East Trinidad and some parts of Central, South, as well as in Tobago, served by surface water sources. Normally, those water plants are affected by the turbidity in the water coming from the forest and other catchment areas. And WASA, in order to protect their equipment, their plant, etc., as well as to prevent the possibility of dirty water flowing into people's home, preemptive action is normally taken to shut those plants down. And when those plants go down, communities served by those plants are affected in terms of their water supply. How soon and how long will it take? It depends on the prevailing weather conditions. There are a number of factors that will have to apply before the water system or supply is regularized and or restored. If, for example, there might be a cut in electricity supply, it will impact the utility company's readiness to restore the water. But once everything is in place, the utility company will restore the water supply, and for low-lying areas, they are normally be the first, because you have to wait on pressure build-up, especially to get the water to the highest points. So communities that are on the lower level, their water supply will be restored once the plants get up and running, once the electricity supply is restored, if in fact there is a disruption in the electricity supply in that particular area. But all things being equal, those low-lying areas, they will first feel the positive impact of a full restoration, and those communities that are on elevated points, they will have to wait a longer period of time before the pressures can be rebuilt to get water to those high points. And that's the reason why the Water and Sewerage Authority has advised citizens to conserve their water during this point in time in the likely event or the possibility of their supply being disrupted by adverse weather conditions.
Quick one. I had undertaken to get back to you on the statement that Diego Martin didn't have sandbags, so there was a difficulty there. I've received pictorial evidence, i.e. Sigler Jack Chairman has just sent me pictures of active operations. This is fake news, folks, is what we were reminding about, to please keep communications real. Not that people didn't have issues, but please, I have pictures in hand. Process has been in effect since yesterday all morning. Mr. Jack has been personally present on location since 7:30 a.m. There's no issue with Diego Martin. We have received reports in relation to supply issues in other corporations that are only now coming in, and therefore we're addressing those to make sure that there's equal distribution across the nation. Remember, demand and supply, sometimes you just need to predict the logistics of it, and it's a matter of supply chain organization. What does that mean? Thanks for your notifications. They all help so that we can add resources where they are required.
Thank you so much, Ms. Al-Rawi. Let's move on to Jensen now. Jensen, last question.
Yes, last question. I know my colleague Charlene had a follow-up question as well. I don't know if you could squeeze her in if she still has that question. Mr. Benjamin, you didn't answer the first part of my original question, and that being whether or not we will be directly impacted by this tropical condition. Given that we know God is a Trini, at times in the past, we have seen that these tropical waves and other type systems bypass Trinidad and Tobago with just winds and heavy rains. And also, to anyone who could answer this, any consideration for, at least for the rest of this week, for the public servants, where applicable, work from home, and if you could give any form of admonition to anyone might be inclined to have storm parties, storm lines, storm gatherings.
Jensen, where do you get this stuff from? It's really interesting that you remind us about the psyche of Trinidad and Tobago. So I think that everybody will take your admonition to take this seriously, please. Let's get this right. You are well accustomed to the Mona and the cooking and the other stories that you hear on our advertisements about the poor gentleman who is exercised by his wife to make sure things go right in terms of preparation. So please, yes, of course, let's just be serious. I don't think admonitions beyond common sense and sensibilities are required at this point. I think that we all need to head back off to work. I know that there are some questions that you've asked there. Let me let the persons who you've posed it to answer beyond the storm party question.
Okay, this question has been posed to me in different forums before. And yes, God is a Trinity, but he's also a God of the universe, and he has to deal with everybody. But the fact of the matter is, as it stands now, we are forecasting that we should be engaged with storm force conditions sometime this evening. Now, the weather is changeable, it's changing its variant. So I will urge you to keep looking at our literature coming out, postings from the Met Service. We are again saying under an orange level alert. Please look at the literature coming out, see as the conditions change. But for now, we are forecasting that we should be impacted by storm force conditions tonight.
Thank you very much, Mr. Benjamin. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our update to the public. I want to thank everyone who has joined us, and I want to thank the members of the media who have been here to assist in getting this information out. I just want to end in the way that we ended our last update, just to echo the sentiments of local government. Processes are in place, coordination is taking place, planning is being done. Now is not a time for panic. Now is the time to prepare, to plan, and to communicate. Thank you very much.
The wet and hurricane seasons are here. Prevention is better than cure. The Office of Disaster Preparedness and Management wishes to advise all persons to follow these 7 steps to be better prepared for adverse weather conditions. 1.